All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining from. Well, it's great to be here on this Saturday with you guys. I love it. If you guys don't mind putting in the chat where you're joining from, I love to see where you guys are coming in and joining me from today. Happy Saturday, everybody. Or Sunday, some of you if you're in another continent. I don't want to assume that everybody's on Saturday time with me, but good to see you guys. Welcome, welcome. As usual, today I have a guest with us who's going to teach us a lot of great things. So I hope you guys are excited for that. I hope you guys are ready. He's actually a guest I haven't talked to in a while. It's been a little bit of time. I think about a year ago was the last time maybe I spent some time with him. So I'm excited to pick his brain and we're going to solve all the world's problems today. As we go through this, you guys put in the chat questions as we're talking. We'll try to get to your questions, as many as possible. I see Jose's from Puerto Rico joining us today. Welcome, Jose. Sasha, you didn't tell me where you're from. You sent a wave emoji. It's good to see you again. So welcome, you guys. Let's get started. My guest is here. Let's go ahead and bring him on. All right. Hi, Daniel. How are you doing today?
Great, thank you.
Glad to be here today. Good to see you. Where are you joining me from today?
So I'm currently in Los Angeles.
Okay.
It's 10 a.m. this morning here.
But 10 a.m. Do you have your coffee ready?
I do, actually. Okay. I'm already on my second cup.
I got my coffee right here, ready to go. So early morning for you in LA. Any exciting plans happening this weekend?
I'm just going to be with my family. I have some, things planned with my kids, my two adorable children. And just enjoying the weather here. It's going to be like 84 degrees.
Okay. Typical LA weather for the late summer, I guess. We're not quite in fall yet, are we? So I think it's still officially summer. I'm not sure. It's maybe somebody out there.
There's really no seasons here. So everything is kind of get 80 degrees in December. So
right,
it's a hit or miss.
There's two seasons in LA. It's really nice or hotter, right? Is that
exactly? I mean, everyone freaks out that it gets 90, but I mean that's not too hot. I mean, I'm from Phoenix, Arizona, and the desert it gets about 115, so that's hot.
Definitely a lot hotter. When I was born and raised in California and lived there my whole life, but I moved to New York. And, about a decade ago. And I was just so amazed about seasons. This is something that you don't experience in California. And I love it. New York, the perfect time of year in New York is spring and fall, right? Just the changing of the season. And it's almost a week period. Like everything changes within about 7 days. So you go from each season and it's noticeable within like a 7-day period. You're like, okay, it's no longer fall. We're now into winter.
Exactly. I wish we had that here. I'm jealous.
Yeah. It's definitely it's fun to experience. At least go and visit New York in the fall. I recommend that to everybody out there. It's the best time of year. But well, Daniel, if you don't mind sharing with everyone who's watching, who maybe don't know who you are, if you don't mind sharing with us, kind of who you are, what you do, and some of your background. We'd love to hear that.
Yeah, sure. So hello, everyone. My name is Daniel Ortega. I'm from actually Phoenix, Arizona, but I'm here in Los Angeles. I moved to Los Angeles, in 2000. But I've always had a passion in film and television. I wanted to somehow, work with actors, not, necessarily be an actor, but I wanted to, help them fulfill their dreams, right? So I went to school at the University of Arizona. I majored in media arts, which is their film and TV program there. I graduated with a degree, and I've already kind of had this idea of I wanted to be on the representation side of things. So I either wanted to be a manager or an agent. So I literally just packed my car up and I said, goodbye to my folks. And I just had, a little money, didn't have a job, didn't even have a place to live. And I just drove out from Phoenix and, I stayed with a friend and I applied at a lot of places, agencies, management companies. And, I had some friends that were already kind of starting out in the business. So I kind of had to weigh in. I applied at an agency by the name of APA at the time. I put about 6 months there. I was in the mailroom. I worked in the mailroom, and then I got promoted to be an assistant on a talent desk. So I worked for a talent agent at the time for 6 months. And I was like, I don't know if the agency side of things is my thing. I want to go into management. So I applied at a few management companies, and I got hired at a company called Lighthouse Entertainment. The manager there, Steven Siebert, and he at the time had clients by the name of Daniel Day Kim, who was on Lost at the time, Julia Stiles, who was working on Save the Last Dance, David Arquette. And I've spent about over a year there. And there was another company by the name of Principato Young that was forming. And I went over there and I was an assistant to, a partner there. And the company was just booming and I got promoted. I was servicing a lot of big A-list comedians, writers, directors, actors. I worked with like Jonah Hill. I worked with Judy Greer. I was just getting my hands full, and a lot of, built my relationships there in comedy. And, I kind of built my list. And at the time there was a agency by the name of Pantheon that, approached me, and they wanted me to go over there and kind of work on their talent side and kind of like redevelop their, department. So, it was a good financial fit for me. And I decided to, move over there. And I spent about 5 years there, 5.5 years. And Stewart Talent at the time, the owners approached me. And I said, it was another good financial situation. And I went over to Stewart Talent. I've been there since for about 6.5 years. Stewart Talent is an agency that has offices in Chicago, Atlanta, New York, obviously LA. I work in the LA department, but they've been around for about 50 plus years. We're a full service agency. We have writers, we have directors, we have actors, we have a commercial department, voiceover, print. And I enjoy it. I have a lot of people, working on television shows right now. The agency as a whole has a lot of people working. We got, Tony Award winners, we got Golden Globe Award winners. I'm just enjoying, the situation that I have, 4 other colleagues in the LA department that I work closely with. And that's me in a nutshell.
I love it. So you started off in the business, going to school for the sake of wanting to work in entertainment. Is that kind of what the end goal was?
Yeah. I mean, I always had this passion, right, as a child, and I always loved watching movies. Like, some of my favorite movies were like E.T., like Raiders of the Lost Ark. So I was just like, wow, Hollywood is kind of where I see myself, right? Like, I come from a big sports background. I've played baseball when I was a kid, all the way through high school. And, like that's a hobby of mine, but my passion was to a career in the entertainment industry. But, it just as a kid. Yeah.
Yeah. And you weren't like an aspiring actor at all. That wasn't something that you really wanted to pursue.
No, I mean, I never really thought about it. I never wanted to be in front of the camera. I wanted to be behind the scenes, helping, these artists, right, fulfill their dreams and get those opportunities for them.
Oh, that's very cool. I love that story. Yeah. So you've been working as an agent or manager for the past like 25 years or so.
Yeah. So a lot of experience in that. My day-to-day job as an agent is very like managerial. I'm very hands-on. I work closely with the client, right? And if the client has a manager, I work closely with the manager, but I just kind of have that manager style agenting approach.
Yeah, everybody's got their own technique, but obviously with the managing background that you have, you're able to do that. That's great. I love that.
And I think it's just important now, especially in like today's time, that you kind of have your reps in the trenches, right, with you and work really closely with the artists.
And so you said in the mailroom, you were actually like kind of.
Yeah. Well, you know, everyone kind of has to pay their dues, you know, and if you go the agency route, your first job will be to work in the mailroom. Like, you know, this was, you know, 25 years ago when you had to print out a script. Now everything is like digital and like electronic, right? But you would actually have to print out scripts, and I would count every page to make sure every page was in that script and there was no like misprints. Then I would have to bind them with the front and back cover. Then I have to, you know, deliver them either to the agent that requested them, or I would have to mail them out either by mail or like a messenger to the actual client of the company that needed a copy of the script.
And those younger generation that's watching, tuning in, we don't mean the email room. It was an actual physical room with paper mail coming in.
The old school, right? Old school days.
Do they even have mail rooms anymore in agencies?
I mean, they probably just have one little room that gets the mail, and you have to deliver the mail to the actual agent, but you don't need to print scripts out anymore.
Right. Well, that's great. So you've seen the industry change quite a bit over the last, 25 years, and kind of go through all the different changes and various strikes that have taken place and different things like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, the business has definitely changed. I mean, it's evolved, in good ways and, some bad ways too. But, it's, I think in Hollywood, there's always going to be changes, right? It's just the way it is.
You mentioned that you worked with a client, or that the management company that you worked with was managing a client from the show Lost. Correct. That show, I just want to tell you, I loved the show like for the first season or two, and then I despised it. Those of you who've seen Lost, well, I wanted to get to the end. It was kind of one of those like unfulfilling stories that never ended, and I would watch it every week. I think is when new episodes came out. I would watch it every week just for the sake of trying to get to the end, just trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah. But it was a hit show. Everyone loved that show. We put Daniel Day Kim on that show, and that's what made him who he is now. I mean, now he's a big producer as well. He's just, his career definitely changed from that.
Right. And that's what I try to get through to people who are starting off in this industry, or people who are trying to break into this industry, is that, you mentioned that he's now a producer and he started off as an actor, and even your story, you worked as management and now as an agent. But people move quite a bit in this industry. They go from position to position. And so it's good for them. It's good for you to build good relationships with everybody, because you never know who's going to be, doing what next year. Like even the people on set, you're working on, and there's a camera guy and a lighting guy, and, just be friendly to everybody and be nice and introduce yourself. I mean, I think their job as an actor on set or as a model on a production is to network as much as possible. Would you agree with that? Is that part of your clients' jobs?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, what makes this business so unique in its own way is like, like you said, everyone is moving around, right? You're just never going to be at one company, right, from the beginning all the way to the end and like retire like other, like careers outside of the business. People are always either, they're an actor, right? And then they'll be a producer, or like myself, a manager to an agent, or like it's just evolving all the way. But this town is definitely built on relationships. It's like who right? That's just kind of the way it works.
Right. And you never know who's gonna make it big and in what area, right? So it's good just to build relationships with everyone.
Well, it's just kind of how like I, just coming into it, just kind of seeing the people that I came in with, how they've grown and their careers have grown and what they're doing now. Like some are, heads of like production companies, some are heads of studios, or an actor that I came in with is now a big star, right, in this business. It's just exciting. It's really neat to see that, right? How people evolve through everything.
Right. And I think people that are interested in this line of work have kind of that mindset of big dreams and big goals. So everybody working in the industry, no matter what they're doing, I'm sure with you working in the mailroom, I'm sure you had bigger dreams and goals at that time.
Well, you have like a degree, right? You graduate and then you get put in a mailroom making like no money, right? And my
Right.
parents were like, "What are you doing? Like, come on, you have a degree. Why are you working for this amount and barely getting by?" But it's all about paying your dues, is what it is. It's everyone has done it before, so that's just what that's about.
Well, let's get into some topics here. I do have a few questions for you. Obviously, people that are tuning in, they might be aspiring talent or talent that are looking to get representation, or people that want to make it big in this industry. Maybe they're currently represented, but they're just trying to get to that next level. But can we talk a little bit about social media? How important is social media nowadays that you're seeing as an agent?
I mean, honestly, to me, and I know to a lot of people out there, I mean, especially in the film and TV as an actor, it doesn't matter. You're not going to get a job based on the social media. You're going to get a job as being a good actor, right? The social media stuff comes in after the fact, that you could help get that following for, say, a movie that you're in or a show you're in, but that stuff comes in after. I mean, everyone's going to hire that particular person who's right for the role, who did the best job out of anyone. I mean, I'm just seeing a lot of these, influencers that come in. For instance, here's an example. I was on set yesterday for a client on his show, and, they hired a couple like influencers, but it's just like, they're not skilled in that way, right? Being on set, it's just different. So, the whole thing is, it's like, to me, I don't care how many followers, it does help, right? Add fuel to the fire later, but it's all about being a good actor.
Right. And so it's difficult for somebody that maybe just works on their social media only to
Yeah,
portray being an actor when they're on set.
correct. Yeah, and
Yeah.
you just have to be very careful, right, with the social media stuff. Like, everyone can see it. It lives on the internet forever, right? And especially like if you're an actor and you're, doing a lot of the social media stuff, just be very careful, because if it could reflect for you getting a job or the image you're portraying on the inner, on that world, to who you really are.
Right. I always tell people, try to be as professional as possible and know that people are watching, right? That's
Correct. Yes, definitely. I
yeah.
mean, I've dealt with some situations in the past when clients would just post things and you're like, why are you doing that? And it has caused them to ruin relationships that they had. And they're like, I never want to see that particular person ever again based on what they did on that, social
Right.
media.
And I'm sure that's not a fun conversation when you have to call up your client about a post they made on.
Exactly. It's not. No. Well, and then and it's my relationship with that particular individual in the business that, the client was actually talking about, and it kind of ruins my relationship as well, right? Because it's like, why are you representing someone that would do that, right? Or post that or whatever it is.
Right. So always, and then those for younger performers, maybe not 18 yet. I always encourage parents to really keep an eye on the social media, monitor, everything that's happening. But it's good to have, like you mentioned, it's good to have those followers. Now on set, those influencers, why do you think they decided to go with an influencer versus maybe a experienced actor? Do you think it's because of the amount of following that they have?
Yeah, for the following, for the try, to get more of the people to tune in, to chime into what maybe the show is or the movie. But yeah, I mean, that's particularly the main reason on that. I mean,
Right.
it's not always the best choice, right? But yeah, I mean, like I saw that yesterday, for example, when I was on set on an influencer compared to an actor that's seasoned, right? It's night
Yeah.
and day.
And you're seeing it even in the modeling world as well. You're seeing influencers being hired to walk runways and on the catwalk and thing. And you can tell by watching them that they're not as experienced as some of those other models
Exactly.
who are out there. Yeah. So how does somebody with no industry connection, how do they catch the eye of an agent or a manager? What's some of the ways that they can do that?
Well, let's first start off before someone does that, right? I think that some, that particular individual needs to, take classes, right? Training's important. They need to, if they feel they're more in the lane of comedy, then they should, you know, take classes in comedy, or if it's drama, take classes that. The most important thing is do not expose yourself if you're not ready yet. You know, for me, when I'll sign actors that obviously have credits, but some that don't have credits that really catch my eye because they're well trained actors, right? That's important. Like I look at it as, an athlete. Like I love sports. Like that's my getaway is watching baseball, football, etc. But I always look at it as an athlete. Athletes are always training, right? They're constantly training when they're on the field, off the court, whatever it is. It's the same way with actors. If you're not working, keep training, keep advancing, right? Even the best have, well trained and they still train, right? So before you start exposing yourself to agents, managers trying to get, representation, really build up the training, right? Get before you start doing, say, showcases, right? Because actors and managers attend showcases, either if they're online, sometimes they'll be in person, and then you can showcase your work with the scene, right? To really get the attention of being represented by either an agent or a manager. So those are ways like showcasing, little short films. Like if you, have other friends, or, I know that, some actors that aren't, representative, they'll like self-submit on, I forget the name of the site, but, they're always looking for actors, but, those are very like particular, projects like short films, student films, but just kind of doing those, right, to get experience. And then you kind of just, you can get exposure for that. If it's like something you feel safe by self-submitting to an agent or manager with, your resume and your photo, and then you just have a link to, say, that short film or a scene or something like that. But, self-submitting is another way as well to get, attention. I get, submissions all the time for actors that are always looking. They'll email me, or, back in the day, they would actually send a hard copy of their resume. But nowadays everything is, electronic.
Right. And when you do get those, like I call them cold submissions, right? Somebody that's just emailing you out of the blue. Is there anything that stands out at you? Like, are there any that you really look at and go, "Oh, I like this person"?
Yeah.
And so why
Yeah.
do they?
No, but I look at all of them. I not necessarily reply to all of them. There's just, my day is busy with emails and such outside of that. But, make it short and sweet. Don't send me 2 pages long of a paragraph, of your whole like history. Just a nice little paragraph of, where you're from, nice little pitch on yourself, what you're up to, and then just a link to your reel, and attach your, headshot and resume, right? So short and sweet, just because there's just so much volume going on, and, just get to the point.
Right.
That's very important.
And then how often should somebody follow up with you or any other agent or manager? Like if they sent you an email, Uh, does it concern you if they sent you 5 emails in 5 days, or?
Yeah. Trust me, I got it. So, like I said, I not necessarily and apply to everything, but maybe wait, a few weeks, right? And then just follow up with me then. Sometimes if there's an actor that like I'll save some of them, right? I put them in a little folder on my email. And if there's someone that I really like and I'm very interested, I'll kind of refer back to them. Say if there's a hole on my roster and I'm looking for that particular, actor, I'll follow back up with them, right? Or if someone will send me an email and I like their look and I like what they've done, sometimes I'll reply back, hey, do you have any, extra, tape or any, have you auditioned in the past? Can you send me your audition? That way I can kind of see them and see where they're at, with their career. But, I'll save some that I really have interest in, not necessarily follow up with them that moment, but sometimes I'll follow up with them in a month or two down the line. Right. So.
And is it better if they haven't been in any project professionally or even like a student film? Is it better for them to attach at least a self-tape? Do you recommend that? Because you want to see them on camera, right?
Yes, for sure. So, like I said, if there's someone that has the training behind them, not necessarily the resume, but, sometimes I'll sign them, right? Like, for instance, I signed a client that literally didn't have anything, graduated from college, nothing on his resume. His training was amazing. And I just started working with him. I sent him auditions and he booked a lead on a Netflix show. So, those kind of circumstances do happen. But if I like that particular person, not necessarily on the resume, yes, please send like a self-tape, right? Because sometimes when I'm pitching clients that don't have a reel, I'll send a self-tape to the actual casting office so they can see what they can do.
Right. So you suggest all in one email, nice short paragraph, kind of present yourself, attach your resume, attach your reel, and kind of explain why you're reaching out. So don't make it a 5 email correspondence type of a thing just to get all the information.
Or a 2-pager. Yeah, I just don't have that time to sit through a three-page email. Like, just get to the point, right?
Right. Yeah. And obviously, I'm sure you're not alone. You're not the only agent that doesn't have that time to do that. So I'm sure what you're recommending here is good advice for any submission to any agent or manager.
Yes.
So then you said you want to see that they've had training, that they're ready to be a part of this industry. How does somebody know when they're ready? Like at what point is somebody being ready? Like if I'm sitting at home, maybe I'm in the middle of a small town somewhere, I don't have a lot of connections, and I've maybe done a couple school projects or something like that. Would I be ready, do you think, to be a part of this industry, or like at what point can I start submitting my information to someone like yourself?
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna only know yourself if you're ready, right? I mean, for me, going back to the training, it's just very important that you're, in a class, right? Not necessarily, hey, I'm gonna only take a 6-month class and then be done, right? You can it's like an ongoing thing, but you'll know as an individual how where you are, because, again, it's just everyone's different, right? Everyone's going to be different in a unique way, right? So, as an individual, if you're ready, training wise, you feel that, you could, take on this business, because, you don't want to be out there too early, because it is a big business, but people do remember. Like I remember, just for doing showcases, when someone reads for me and showcases their work, like I remember them 6 months to, past a year, and I'll just remember, I'm like, wait a minute, I remember you from so often. So you just know as an individual, like where you are. But if you are doing, some work like short films or anything like that, and, you are getting work in that world, then by all means, you might be ready. It's just, you're only be the one that can tell.
Mackenzie has a question. She's asking, why does an agent want somebody with more experience over somebody who maybe has no experience? Why would you want that?
Well, going back to the, you don't, this business again, you don't want to be, you feel more confident with someone with a resume, right? Because they've done this, they're already kind of seasoned in a way, right? So, and also this is a business, right? It's it's a business. We need to make a living, right? Obviously too. So, sometimes you're gonna want to go with, someone that actually has credits, that has, worked in this town before, right? Or whatever it is.
And it's your reputation too. You don't want to pitch a client that's just starting off to somebody.
Yeah,
And
that actor's not ready yet. Yeah, like people do remember, right? I mean, there's so many actors, but for some, like people remember that particular person just because everyone's different in their own unique way.
right. And so obviously you don't get paid or make money unless the client books and makes
Correct.
money.
Yeah,
So
exactly. We only get paid if the client books.
right. And so you don't want to just work for free for people who aren't going to book.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
I mean,
no.
but like sometimes, like, going back to that, not necessarily I'm like only going to work with someone if they make money, but if there's someone that I'm very passionate about or client, which there are, it takes time. There's no real timeline, right? How someone's going to start working in this town. It's different for everyone. Like, going back to my example with me signing this kid out of college, and then he's on a Netflix show on the second season now. He was just, had that right role at that particular time. But there's also, clients of mine that I've had forever that I'm developing, right, with them, getting them. Just, it takes time. There's just no real timeline there's no crystal ball, right, when it's going to happen for someone.
Right. And people don't just get lucky. They're prepared to be at the right place at the right time with the right opportunity, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Your client that's on the Netflix show, he put in all that work. He just happened to be ready for you, and then you were able to get him.
And that role just was the perfect fit for him.
Right.
There's going to be roles that you just can't, you do well in, but they're just not that. It's not that perfect for you. Like, you'll know when it happens, right? You'll know when that role is there. That is that particular actor.
Right. Now, what's a good mindset to have as an aspiring actor or model? What would you recommend for new people trying to break into the industry, or even existing actors or models?
Yeah, I mean, like just in general, or like working with me?
Just in general, like what's a good way for them to really dial in for success?
Yeah, I mean, just, it's the focus, right? The work that they put in, the time, right? The training is very important. Just having this mindset that, it's very competitive right now. So, you really have to give it 110%, right? Laziness is not good. It's just devoting what your passion is in this business and going for it, right? So I mean, that's very important.
Joe's asking a question. He says, have you ever had to drop clients before? And if so, what were maybe some of those reasons?
Yeah. No, I just went, as of like a week ago, we had some drops. So reasons, going back to making, just not focused, right? Being lazy is a bad thing for us. the amount of opportunity that a particular client has had in, like there's no real timeline what we're giving the actual client, right? But if there's any sort of progress that they're doing, we're really working on our end to get these opportunities. But if there's no sort of progress on their end, like getting callbacks, kind of just moving up rather than staying in one lane, progress is important. But if there's no progress and it's been 2 years and there's something not right, making excuses, or, my biggest pet peeve is extensions, right? If I send a client a self-tape and they need to turn it in by Friday, and come, Friday morning, oh, can I get an extension? But they've had the opportunity for 4 or 5 days. Like, like sometimes there's going to be reasons why you need an extension. If you're sick or something came up, that's fine. But like constantly asking for extensions, no communication is very important. Like, you need to tell us, like, if you're booking out or where you're going. But nowadays everything is self-tape, so you can go to another state or whatever it is and film it there or whatever. But just no communication, or just going ahead and doing things without having a conversation with your representation. Like, some people will go and change their hair color, or like, why are you doing that, with no sort of discussion, right? So just doing things like that.
Right. Obviously, it's a relationship, and you're working for free until they book. So you want to make sure that they're staying on top of responding to everything you send to them, and being proactive.
Yes, exactly.
I had a client this week, even there was a perfect role for him, and I sent it over to him, and he said, "Well, I don't know if I have time. Maybe." That was his response, and I'm thinking, wait a second.
Well, you know how it is.
Why am I working harder than you?
Exactly. I mean, especially now, it's very, very competitive, and we're delivering, but you need to meet us halfway. It's a relationship. It's sort of like a marriage, right? You meet us halfway, we meet you halfway, and it works that way.
Right. So I have a question from Layla. She's asking if she's auditioning for voiceovers, how does that prepare her? Can that prepare her for on-camera auditions as well? Like, do you see people cross over from voiceover world to on-camera auditions?
I just had this conversation with my colleague yesterday. I mean, voiceover is another beast in a way, because on camera is way different than voiceover, right? I mean, I don't really necessarily work a lot in voiceover, but I'm feeling that, it's just kind of a hard circle to break into, right? Especially with these casting directors that are in that world. For me, I never really could understand that, with voiceover. But I did, when I was a manager, I was working with, a lot of A-list actors that, just because of who they are, they were getting those voiceover jobs based on the name, right?
Right.
So kind of breaking in as a new actor, new voiceover actor. I mean, it's just a different ball game.
Right. Now, I have Brian. He's from Canada, and he's asking, with finding agencies in Canada, how does he find agents in Canada, and how does he know if he's going to be a good fit for them? What would you recommend to somebody like Brian?
I mean, me personally, and I know a lot of my colleagues and other agents as well, we work with Canadian agents, right? What's basically called like a split. So say if an actor's coming from Canada, right, and they're coming into the US market, so we work closely with the Canadian agents, and it's kind of the same way as we work. You would submit to these Canadian agencies. It's a smaller market. There's the Vancouver market, there's the Montreal, there's the Toronto. So it's not as big, and they don't have as many agencies, but it's the same way. You would probably have to self-submit. Or if, say, for instance, if I sign a particular actor, it works the same way like in Australia or, anywhere else, Canada, Mexico. But if I sign, say, a client that's from Canada and that particular actor doesn't have representation in Canada, I'll reach out to, say, some of my relationships in Canada who I know, agents, and I will put them that way they can kind of look out for that market there in Canada.
Right, because you're not directly looking at the Canadian market and what's happening, but if you have a Canadian, you work with somebody from Canada, you want them to get as much work as possible because that just helps you, right? It helps.
Yeah. Well, especially like if if an actor doesn't have many credits, I think it would be a good thing to put a Canadian agent in play, or if Australian agent. But say if the actor's already evolving, right, and you just don't want to, they don't have any representation outside of that, everything will be funneling through me, right? So, but I have relationships in all those different markets outside the U.S.
Right. And so, with all of your experience working as an agent or a manager, maybe you're the best person I can ask this question to. Which is better, an agent or a manager?
I mean, I work like a manager, so it's really, the difference is a manager can produce. So I have experience in producing. I have experience in seeing a client, say, have a particular idea for a television show or a movie, and it evolve as a, from a pitch to, selling it at a studio to actually shooting it. So that's the only, upside, at least for me, is you can produce as a manager. Agent, you can't. Agent,
Right.
you're just booking the client on a job, either television, theater, movies. But I pretty much work like a manager. I'm very hands-on with all the clients.
Right. And there might be some differences, obviously, with different countries, but within the US as an agent, you're not allowed to do anything other than be an agent, right?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Based on your licensing and everything. They regulate that pretty hard.
Yeah. And I know, like in other, countries, because I have clients in Mexico that they don't have agents. So it's basically their managers will do their deals, right? And then they also handle all their managerial stuff, like their day-to-day things. So they only have the manager. They don't have an agent.
Oh, got it. Yeah. So each country has its own setup of things.
Well, it's the same way, like in Australia, they only have a manager that does all that.
Right. Now, you said that you've worked with people like Jonah Hill and different things in a lot of comedy area. Was that kind of, were you in the comedic department, or was that just kind of the genre just happened to fall?
Well, the company was branded as a comedy company, right? So, I worked with Will Arnett, Ed Helms, Judy Greer, but not necessarily. I was just focused on comedy. I was kind of everywhere, right, with dramatic actors and comedy writers, directors, and actors.
And what is your area right now within the agency? Are you focused on a specific area, or do you work with
all of
everybody?
the above? Yeah, I work with everything. So film, TV, theater, comedy, actors, dramatic actors. I think now in today's time, you have to be able to do everything, especially as an actor, right? You can't just be branded as a comedy person. There's just so many good examples now of, actors that were comedians that now are dramatic actors. Everyone is just kind of can do everything nowadays. That's just kind of the way it is, right? You're just not like pigeonholed anymore.
Right. What are some ways that you recommend to maybe some of your clients or even aspiring actors to develop some of those techniques, like maybe comedy, for example, if they don't have that naturally?
A class, right? Either an improv class, a comedy. There's just so many out there, right? Whatever. You're only going to determine that if what kind of actor you are, right? What's going to challenge you, what you feel is the best fit for you. I always like, with some examples of actors that I've worked with in the past, if they come in with more of a dramatic approach and that's all they have on their resume is serious things, I'm like, why not? Let's take a comedy class, mix it up a little bit. And sure enough, they did. And then I put them on like a comedy series, a half-hour series, just based on that. I just think you should be able to do everything now. But you're the only one that's going to determine that. What's going to challenge you and what class that you take and what feels the right lane for you. Like we can only suggest, certain, classes or, approach, but you're the only one that's in the field that's the best fit.
Right. How important is it for your actors to really understand who they are as a character? Like, do you ever talk to an actor and you tell them, hey, I really see you in as the professor type of a character, and they come back at you with thinking that there's something else? Do you ever have those conversations at all? Or
For sure. Yeah. I mean, there's always going to be discussions, like in the beginning, there really isn't, there's not much of discussion because, you really want to build those relationships. You want to get that particular actor visible in everyone's eyes, right? But as time goes on and the actor's building that career, there's going to be conversations like, why should I do this? Like, I already done this before. Sometimes it's going to be, hey, look at the people involved, look at the producers involved, look what, even a little small role in a big movie that has all these stars can get the visibility, but you've done that role in another show or whatever it is. But that moment could sparks to get something bigger than that, right? So there's just always going to be conversations, but I do have them, quite often.
yeah, do you ever have to help them change their mind? So say somebody like myself, I know I'm a leading man, right? So if you're my agent and I tell you I'm a leading man, do you ever have to tell me that no, Jeremy, I don't think you are the leading man. I think you are more fit for this role instead?
Yeah. I mean, for sure. I mean, that stuff will kind of always come with the time you've had with that client, right? Like some clients that I've had for 20 years, right? I still represent, but there's just that it's like a marriage, right? I can have those conversations. I think sometimes you need to be a little skeptical with when you're first working with someone, but you really have to have a reason and go in strong. But, like, again, going back to why should I do this if I've done a lead in the last 3 movies, but it could be based on because of who's behind that project. It could be a smaller role, but, they do it all the time. Like if you see, big movies, there'll be a star that has done a cameo in a major movie, but he's a leading actor. Like it happens all the time.
Right. I love cameos. I love seeing people that show up that you don't expect, right? Seeing Bad Bunny as a
yeah. Yeah, I did a good job though for that. But like, you remember certain movies in the past when, now in present time, the actor is a huge star, but you remember that particular movie or whatever it was. And they did like a 1 or 2 line and a very sparking moment in that movie and a scene that you remember them, right? It's all about remembering from that moment to what they are now.
Right. What somebody's asking, how do you give advice to actors or models or aspiring talent about rejection? Especially when they're first starting working with you. Do you ever have those talks with your clients?
Yeah, I actually just had one yesterday. But this business is all about rejection and being able to handle it, right? The best way I say it is, it's like you just have to take that rejection, what went wrong or what the pluses are, what are the minuses, gain from that and turn the page and move on. You can't dwell on that, right? Because it's going to affect things later on, right? For instance, like an example of a client that just, she got to a certain level, right? Like she self-taped, they liked her, she had a callback for the producer, she was pinned, but she didn't end up getting the part. It went to someone else. But so that was really hard on that particular actor. But the pluses is look how high up she got, right? Producers loved her. They're going to think about her for another role. So she's gaining from those. I mean, it's just gaining from that and moving on, because if you dwell on things, it's going to really affect you in the long run. I mean, it's like, look, this is what this business is about. It's about rejection. I mean, you came in wanting to be an actor, but that's how this industry is, right? I mean, I deal with like rejection all the time when I'm pitching a particular client to a casting director and they said, no, they're not right. I mean, that's rejection. Why not? Like, it's the same thing for an actor.
Right. And at the end of the day, casting can only choose one, right? So they have their favorites. But if she made it that high, she's now a fan of whoever that casting director was.
Yeah.
And
or it could be like that casting director has brought her in a numerous amount of time, but is a huge fan of her and is pushing from their end. I mean, just built because that actor's built that relationship already with that casting director.
Right. And you love that as an agent when a casting director is asking for your clients specifically, right?
I mean, that's like easy. Like, automatically, I don't even have to pitch because that casting director knows that particular client, and we'll just bring them in.
What piece of advice do you give to actors before they walk into like their first big audition? Do you give them any sort of, what do you recommend they do to prepare for that audition?
I mean, being well prepared, right? What my main thing is, what sort of print are you going to leave in that particular casting director's mind, right? For them to remember you, right? If it's for this particular project, amazing, great. But it's all about the long run. Like, how are you going to do, what are you going to do differently for them to remember you for future? That's the main thing that I always tell them. Obviously, do your homework, study, go in, well prepared. But that's one thing I always tell them is make sure they remember you down the line.
Right. And so when they're preparing that self-tape at home, they're trying to figure out ways to capture that audition different than what maybe everybody else is doing.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, you don't want to just fit in with everyone else because they won't remember. You won't stick out. Right.
Right. And with a casting, you never know how many self-tapes they're requesting, but you would imagine quite a few, right?
A lot. Yeah. Especially now because everything is self-tape. In the past, when they would actually bring actors in the room, right, it would be fewer, but now self-tape, I mean, the pool is larger now.
Right. Yeah. And so because of that, they have more time to see more self-tapes or not even watch them all. I'm sure they open up some of those self-tapes and don't even finish them based on.
Well, they already have an idea of what they want, right?
Right.
So if you're not grabbing their attention within the first 10, 15 seconds, they're going to move on. Right. So whatever you need to do to get them engaged is what the main thing is. The most important thing is.
Absolutely. Now, I know that our time's kind of wrapping up here, but if anybody wanted to have you represent them, and what's the best approach? Like, where should they find information? Should they go to your website for the agency, or what would you recommend?
Yeah, so my email is probably the best way to, I don't know, I think I said you could give them my email address, right?
Yeah.
But it's through here or any, I mean, my email address is pretty pretty easy to find, on like IMDb. I'm on there, but yeah, that's the best way is email me, right? Don't call because, obviously I'm busy, but I will get your submission.
Well, we do have 5 million people on here. So are you ready for that many emails?
Yeah. I was like, what? Yeah. 5 million emails by tonight. Oh yeah.
By tonight. Your weekend just got busier.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, I know that you have some big plans this weekend, hanging out with the family. Sounds like a fun weekend. But yeah, thank you for joining us. We do appreciate you taking time out of your Saturday to be with us, and I'm sure a beautiful day there in LA. It was great seeing you again. I don't remember the last time I saw you. I know it's probably been at least a year.
Exactly. Yeah. No, thank you for having me. I had a good time, and again, I wish everyone the best. Yeah. Everyone have a great.
I'll post the email for those guys here afterwards so that they'll have it. Okay. So again, 5 million of you, feel free to reach out. All right, Daniel. Well, I appreciate your time. It's nice seeing you again. Enjoy your weekend, and hopefully we'll see each other in the near future.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
Bye, everyone.